If you want, we can start with the question you had.
Did you ask me?
No, I think he asked me, I think, Orhan?
Mohammed.
Orhan, I have a question about the post new mail. It's like post new insert new contact. It's working with me. My code it's work in back end, but it doesn't work with in front end. So I don't know why. My code it's like what you write in your code, and also it's like what Val he write in class, but also it doesn't work. So I don't know what the problem. I shared my screen from 1 or 2 days before, but I don't get answer about that. So I don't know what I want to do now.
You said the header and body like this.
I'm sorry.
Header and body. Oh, just a second.
Yeah.
I think my microphone is having some issues.
Better now.
Yeah, it's okay now.
Okay, it's because my microphone on my AirPods they don't work that well. So what I was saying that are you setting the headers and body like this in what you're doing? That could be the issue, but otherwise we'll get to that when we to finish the Heroku part. Then we will start.
It's
helping you with
it's work with delete. It's work with delete. It's work with when I browse from a page to another page. It's okay with me, but it doesn't work when I just create mail or update mail. So.
Yeah, let's look at that when we start to work on the homework, and then we will.
Yeah. Okay.
Help you out there. Is everybody here now? 15. I think that's all, right?
I'm in.
Swazi, did you have a question, or the raised hand is from? Who is this?
No, it's from before, not now. But I have questions, but after the Heroku part.
Yeah.
I have notes.
That's good. Mohammed, I will. Do you want to mute yourself, or should I?
No, sorry.
Nice. Okay, cool. I have started the recording, and now I will share my screen as before. And now we'll deploy this app. This very simple contacts or phone book app. We will deploy that to Heroku, and this was what it looked like. It seemed to work fine. So in the homework week 4 homework document, there is this link. How do you deploy with Heroku? I think all of you created a Heroku account. If not, then you need to have an account first. And this gives this is step by step of what you should do. And what I'm going to do now is basically that. Yeah, that's cool. So first we need to put our code on GitHub. So here I'm closing the server, and if I write git status, you'll see that this is not a Git repository. So what do you need to do to make this a Git repository?
git init.
Yes. And so I have, so git st is like a shorthand alias for status. This looks fine. So I'll just add them all because we want to add them all and say, let's deploy. Now I have committed this, but this is so far only locally on my machine. Let's just make this full screen. So now I need to go to GitHub. I create a new repository, as I mentioned, because when you want to put an app on Heroku, it expects a certain structure. It expects that the package JSON should be in the root. So that's why it doesn't work if you have it in your homework structure. So here, I'm creating a new repository, like your future phone book, making it public, create. So it's saying if we should create a new repository, but basically we have already done this, git init add commit. We have done that, so we should follow this step. So to take this, git remote add, so it knows where to push the code to, and now we actually push the code. Nice, it worked. Cool. Now we have the code on GitHub. And remember to make your code public, because otherwise we won't be able to review it. So now we can go on to the Heroku part. We need to create an app on Heroku. And I think some of you tried to say, oh, it should be called Hacky Future Meal Sharing, but now it says that that's not available. That's because it has to be unique across all of Heroku. So I'm just going to change the region to Europe. In this case, this is not the meal sharing, this is the phone book. That is available. So let's just take that. Otherwise, I would recommend that you, with meal sharing, that you put your name on afterwards. That should probably be unique. So we said Hacky Future phone book and create app. Cool. It has a very nice integration with GitHub, and that's what we're going to use here. So basically, I just said the way we deploy is with GitHub. We need to connect with GitHub, and I already did that step, but otherwise it will show like a pop-up that says we want to give access to. Then just say yes. Okay, so we have this selected, and now we need to find the repository. So this one was called Hacky Future phone book. Search, and it found this. We say connect, and we want to enable automatic deployments. What this means is that when you push new code to GitHub, it will automatically deploy it to Heroku. So that's very nice. Say yes. Okay, automatic deploys are enabled, and you can select a branch, but in our case, it's just a master. Okay, so when you set up Heroku, it basically can only what it doesn't can now is that it can host the your web server, your app server, or your backend, but you need to sort of add some add-ons for the databases. Heroku has built-in stuff with the Postgres, but we are going to use MySQL. We say that we should use ClearDB MySQL. And Priyanka mentioned this, and I also saw this myself. So this is the second time I'm doing this. The first time when I tried to say free here and press provision, it said that I need to put in my credit card details. So you will have to do that, but just make sure that you don't select a paid plan. I think they mainly do it for security, that they have a credit card in case of something. So I select the free one, provision. So I can see in the overview tab that I have this installed, and I can see that it's free. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to go to the settings. So here, and just copy this here, and let me actually let me make a new file. I'll just copy this here. I'll copy that one. So it has this environment variable, ClearDB database URL, and we need to map out the different parts of this URL so it matches here. So we talked a bit about URLs. And I also think that it says here that what the structure is. So user, password, host, / database. That means that this part is the username. This part is the password. This part is the host. And this part is the database. So this is very important. So I'll just put this into a file, and I haven't saved this file. This file should not go to GitHub. If you do that, then everybody will have your database password and username. So if you do that, they can basically delete all your stuff, or modify your data. Yeah.
We did put all the details here in .env file, and we are not supposed to upload it right on the GitHub.
Oh.
Let's suppose, because we are doing all of this so that we can have our project online and we can see it working online.
Yes.
Without local host, right? And without .env file, we are not able to connect our database to the front end and back end, right? If we want our project to be running online and want to see it working online, so how are we?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is possible to connect to your make your app run without the .env. The way you would do that is if you passed in environment variables like this. This is also a way to do it, but it's just nicer to have it in a file when you run locally. But now we need to basically, so this part where you have like these key and value, these are called environment variables. And we need to specify them on Heroku so we can actually connect to the real database. And it doesn't have to be with the .env because the .env is not on GitHub. We
And
just have
what about
this one.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Yeah. And what about a host? Like we provide local host number, like port number, to our this app to be running on local host. And what about the port?
Yeah. We don't. So the database port is this because that's the default one for the MySQL. Different databases have default ports, and for MySQL, it's that one. What Heroku does is that Heroku actually passes in a port, just a random one. We basically don't know what it is. With the via the env variable. So basically on Heroku, they do something like that, and then that's how they specify the port, and you don't need to know about that.
Okay, so it will provide us, and I mean, it's okay if we don't know about it. It will be running, right?
Yes, it will work. It will take the traffic. Yeah, I will show that in a minute. A bit more. So what I did here was to take that MySQL URL and split it into the different parts, and now I need to put this into the configuration on Heroku. And the database port. And now I don't save this file, and if I want to get to this, then I can always go back to Heroku and find out what this is. But now it's set up. And and don't delete or edit this one, because that's something that Heroku manages. So this should still be there. Okay, so now the environment variables, or the config vars as it's called here, has been set up. Now we need to make the first deployment, and because
Sorry, one more thing. I was thinking in my mind, like I created some app and then I pushed it into GitHub, and I pushed my database inside Heroku, and then I removed my env file and gave gave my all the credential. Sorry, I put my all the credential inside Heroku my account. So it will be private, but it will be running as. And if in future, let's suppose I want to work on this app or maybe download it and recreate some features inside it. So how will I get my .env file? Like it will create some .env file and then it will give me, or should I create .env file by myself and then copy all the credential from there and then write it inside my env file, and then it will be up and running in my localhost?
So when you are working on your local host, then you don't connect to the production database. You have your own database locally that you work with. And the way we did that was we created a copy of this example file, and then we put in the stuff for our local database. So keep in mind that there is a difference between your local and the production database.
Okay, that's why we kept that .env.example file for reference purpose. Okay, great. And one little, I mean, maybe it is a misunderstanding, but you said that we need to have our own database locally. We will not be working on the database which is inside Heroku, which is connected to our app, right? So
Yes.
we need to create new database, and I mean, we are not, I mean, we are not supposed to connect with that database locally. I mean, from our local host to Heroku, or I mean, are we sure that we should not?
Yeah.
I mean, why? I mean, I want to know that are we able, but we should not access because it is a good practice, or we are not be. I mean, it is not allowed to access that.
It is, as you'll see in a minute, it will be possible to connect to that database from our computer. But the idea is that, let's say you are working on a team, you are working on a feature where you can delete contacts, and you have another colleague that works on updating contacts. And when you work on this feature, you work locally, and you don't want to actually go out and delete your real data that somebody is using, right? Somebody could be using your app. You know, hopefully there should be some users to your app, and then if you make the changes, updates and deletes in that one, then you basically can delete the data. So it is possible, but as I mentioned here, you
okay, yeah. I mean, it is not a good practice to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Yes.
And let me just ask in a different way. Why would you want to do it?
I mean, as I think, if I want to do something, I mean, further, like if I want to create new features, so I thought that maybe I will download everything from Git and Heroku, and then I will keep it in. I mean, I will create a new repository in my system, and then I will do the development further, like with the data and the code. I will develop new features according to the existing code and database. I was thinking like that.
Yes, it should. It is a common practice to download the data from, to get some real data. But then you also need to be careful of, if you have some personal information in the database and it's on your computer, then there's also some GDPR challenges with that. But it is possible to make like a dump of the database, but then you would take that dump or the backup or snapshot and put it into your own local database.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So to get back to here, we have stuff set up, but we have actually not deployed yet because we need to trigger the first deployment. And the way we do that is basically just to make some kind of change. So I want to make a change here that says website for phone book website. I I want to call this book here, for instance. I can see with the Git, I have some changes, and I say, I'm not sure if you need to install. You probably don't, right? Yeah, and then I commit this, and I say fix name and description, JSON. Now I say push, and let's. So there's still a thing we need. We are missing, but we'll see that in a minute. So you can see here on GitHub now I have 2 commits, and you will see here on Heroku that there is a build in process. So so it's starting a build when you push something to GitHub. And a build is basically where it's getting all the dependencies, packages you need, and then it's starting a new server for you. Build succeeded and deployed. So let's say here, I just want to see the logs here. So the logs is similar to what you would see in the terminal. Let's say open app here. So there is a application error. It's not possible to see all of it. Yeah. So I think at least one of the missing pieces is that actually I don't think that's the problem. npm run server, just to say. Okay. The problem here is now that the start is saying npm run server, but we renamed that. So I actually think that this start script should not use nodemon. So we don't need to use nodemon in production, and probably it's not a good idea because we defined nodemon as a development dependency. So I'll just get that fixed. So fix the start script and push. I'll just keep these logs open, then we can maybe follow what's going on here. Yeah, there's a new build that started. And while we are waiting, I think Priyanka or someone, I'm not sure.
Yes, I raised my hand because I saw earlier that you edited that start part, and I am sorry if I am not correct, but I thought that in the starting of this node part, when we were starting this node, I mean node course. So you or Vlad, one of you, I think, said that there is a development part and there is a deployment and development, or server or development, something like that.
Yeah, production.
I confused for that. Dev is development part and start is like server part. And
yeah, is the production.
Yeah, production. Sorry, yes, production and development, or production or server.
So you deploy to production. You have some code that you deploy, push to the production. And now it seems like it worked here because now npm start worked, and that's what Heroku does by default. And now we can actually see that it started on some random port. So that's pretty neat. Let's go to Postman now. And now we actually have something that is public. So instead of the localhost, I can actually put in, let's just say HTTP here. Let's try to get contacts. And there's a error. And what is the error? Can someone see it?
It says there is no table called contacts.
Exactly. So let's go to here, and we need to make a new connection to this. So I'll make a new connection called Heroku. So the host was this. The port is that one. That's still the same. User is here. And the password is this one. And let's say test connection. And successfully made the MySQL connection. Cool. Yeah. Now we are connected to the database, but as you can see, there are no tables in the database. So we'll just use this same one here. Create table contacts. And I'm not sure if we need to restart, but let's just try. Yeah, so now the app crashed. And I think we can restart it from here. Restart all Dino. So the Dino is basically the web server. You can see it over here. Now we have the database add-on, and then we have the Dino, which is the web Dino. So let's restart. Yeah, questions? Is what?
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, where is the app? I mean, I was thinking the app as something that I use in the phone.
Yeah, I will. So we have the web page. I will show it now.
Okay. So this is a web app.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Did it restart? Check the logs here. Yeah, now I started on a different port, and and that's fine because what it's doing is that it is we created this app with this name. So what it will do is that it will take the requests that we make to this domain or host, and then it will, behind the scenes, it has a process somewhere with this port. Then it'll just send the traffic to that place. So it's not something you need to think about. Now we don't get an error. We just get an empty response, which makes sense because in the production database we have nothing. We have the table, but the data from locally that we don't have in production. So now I'm not sure if it works with HTTPS. Does it? Okay, it works. That's cool. So now we see this page as we had locally. So now let's try if it works. And we see that it works. If you want, you can try to go in and actually use this app. I can put it in the chat. Yeah, that's basically how you deploy your app to Heroku. And if one of you just try to add some, yeah, okay. So I just need to update on my end to actually see the new data. Somebody had a question.
So this thing with this Heroku, we do this because the thing that I have developed can be used by multiple people. So that's the only reason why we do it, because when we access it with HTTP localhost blah blah blah, so it's only me. I can do it only in my system, but with this, a lot of people can use my app. So that's why we do deploy using Heroku. That's the purpose.
Yes, let me ask you. Let's what's the value in having app that just runs on your computer?
Yeah. There's nothing.
At the previous company I worked, they used Heroku, for almost all the backends and web apps, because prior to Heroku, you would have to start a server somewhere, and then you need to install the database. You need to install, Nginx or Apache. You have to install Node, and with Heroku, you just, if you follow the way that they expect, then it's really powerful and a very nice way to get started.
Okay.
Yeah, and now whenever we make changes to the project, you push it to GitHub, and then it will automatically update here, because we set it to automatically deploy here, right? But all of that should be in the instructions. But as you saw here, there is just the first time there can be the case where you need to make a commit on GitHub to actually trigger the first deploy. But other than that, and then you also need to create the tables you need. Then it should be fine. That point. Priyanka?
It is just a futuristic question, but I think it occurs to my mind that the GitHub the code, it is on the GitHub in master, right? And let's suppose me and my classmates, all we are working on a project, like we supposed to do in after our course finishes. We have to create a project together, whole class, and we are creating a lot of different branches. We are creating we are working on the different features, right? And we all need to connect with database as well, and we are pushing, like let's suppose daily we are pushing some code to the GitHub, and these are all branches. So will these branches will be able to access that database which is created, which is connected to the master?
Yeah, just to make it a bit more clear. The database is not connected to master. The database is connected to the Heroku app, which will be automatically deployed when you make changes to master. And I think in your case, it'll be fine to do it like this, where people, they work in branches, and then you make a pull request, and then you work locally and make sure that things work, and then when you are ready to you have a pull request. People say it looks fine. They give it a approval. Then you merge it to master, and then it will be deployed automatically. There is also something called review apps. It's not something we'll cover here, but basically, it will let you create like a temporary Heroku app for each branch you have.
Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah. So yes.
You can try to look at that if you want, but I think it's a bit.
Yeah, it's in future, but it just occurred to my mind if we all create so many branches, and let's suppose all are dependent on the database, like all need to access database in order to function.
That's why you need to work locally on your own database. You don't, when you own, so only the Heroku app in production should use your production database. Make sense?
Yes. Because locally I'm working with my own database, and it is different from what we have uploaded on the Heroku. And then I put my data.
Yeah, it's fine that the data is not the same, because when you are working locally, it is nice to get some data that looks like real data, but again, as I mentioned, that way could be done by downloading a database dump or backup, and then putting that data into your local database. The main thing that you need to worry about is that the database schema you have locally and that you have in production is the same. So usually it would be a good idea to maybe have your database schema in a file. So if needed, or when a new person joins the team, they just run this, and then they get all the tables, and then you could create it's usually called like a seeds, where you can insert some fake data into your database to sort of get started quickly.
Yes, I mean, this answers my questions. There's a little bit confusion left when I think about I have created branches. My code is approved from my seniors, or let's suppose whoever is in charge of that whole code, and now I need to merge my branch with my master, so it will connect automatically, right?
Yes. So when you merge it, then it'll be deployed automatically. The only thing that you might need to do manually is if you make changes to the database schema. But again, this is getting to like a bit advanced stuff. Swati.
Yeah, sorry, Orhan, and sorry, Priyanka. Is it only me who is not understanding what Priyanka is asking? I'm just not following. I just got lost. I'm trying to understand. I don't know why.
Yes, sorry, I'm not so clear.
I think she's talking about, it's fine that Heroku, or, if there is a change in master, then it will be deployed to production automatically. But what about when I have a feature branch? How can I deploy that? And my answer would be that you don't. But it is possible with this review app concept. Yeah, I don't think we need to. I think it confuses more than. But if you want to answer, Priyanka.
No, I am fine. I have answers now. I am not confused now because I have a very bad tendency to get confused and get people confused as well with me. So I'm so sorry, but I am fine with my answers. I think I have my answers. Yes.
Okay, Tiago.
Just to make sure if I understand right, Heroku acts like a MySQL bench. It processes all the database. If you have a delete or insert, Heroku does it and shows it back online.
But Heroku, so yes, there is a production database on Heroku, but we also have.
If I have
We also have.
Yeah, any function to delete a contact. Would it work also?
Basically, once you probably don't want to access the database directly. We did it now because we want to create the first table, but once we have that set up now, and now we can you should use the API we created. So this was just the local host before, right? And now because it's out in the public, then we have this URL. Now we can actually get the data like this, and this is what you would need to do when you want to actually publish your app, right? Because otherwise people can't otherwise you would have to use your own laptop as the server. So now we can use all the endpoints we created. So let's try to get the first one. Yeah, now we get the with the contacts with the ID one. Now we can also use the delete. I think we have that. Delete true. Does that make sense, Tiago? I don't hear you.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. So don't think too much about the database. Yes, there is a database now that is actually out in the database is not one that's on your computer. The more interesting part is that we have deployed the web server, the API, the backend that we created. Actually now it's not just the backend. It's we also have a front end, right? So now we have deployed our web app. So I think we should wrap up here. I don't see any raise. Swati, did you have? Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask questions after this, so I was the first person. I just wanted to raise the hand first.
So I think we should. So I will stop sharing my screen now. I think what we should do is that split the class in two. So Vlad, are you back now?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So I'm thinking that if you can see the participants list, so I think let's see. Probably starting from Lucha. Matsi, Masume, Nemekdes, Mohammed, Swati, Thiago. If you can go to a Slack call, and then the rest can stay in here. And then people can ask questions about the homework or whatever.
So you want to stay here and us go into Slack or other way around?
Yeah, I don't care. I'm just thinking of splitting in two, so we can have two things in parallel.
Yeah, it's totally fine. So then I'll create probably a call in